She doesn't even go here.
I'm bi, actually.
Excuse me. Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Hi, I'm Kurt Hummel, and I'll be auditioning for the role of Kicker.
Hey! Welcome to Not So Straight Nerds. I'm your host, Alicia.
I am your other host, Luke.
Yes, today we're going to be talking about Mickey 17. Very excited to talk about this movie.
We have a poster for
Do
it.
you have a poster if you're watching on YouTube?
We've
but
been
if
saving
not-
him for this very special occasion.
Yes. So we'll start out with some non-spoiler stuff, kind of move into more spoiler territory. We'll let you know when that happens. And then we're also I have read the book. I'm like the book person here between the two of us. So we're going to talk about that as well, some comparisons to the book. We will also let you know when there's spoilers for that as well.
Absolutely. I'm very excited
Yeah,
to
and then what the numbers
your
have
thoughts on
been,
that.
the cast, just kind of everything. We're excited. We have a
Yes.
lot to talk about.
And we watched this movie a good couple of weeks ago now,
Mhm.
and I feel like I can still remember piece for piece.
I agree.
Which I can't say for the episode we just filmed, The Electric State.
And
So
we watched that
I remember
not
this
as
movie-
long ago.
Yeah, we watched that within this last week, and I remember this movie a lot more vividly, which I think speaks a
Yep.
bit to this movie and maybe just the way movies are doing so far this year in 2025
Yes.
in general.
Yeah, but first we have, some vibes. This is our second
Gosh.
episode we're filming of the day. So,
Yeah.
how do you feel?
I'm doing pretty good. I know you're going to look at me with the dirtiest look, but I'm actually pretty hungry right now.
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
the one who decided.
lunchtime.
I'm the one who decided to
Let's
push
do
for one more
video,
episode
even
before
though
lunch.
Even though, our videos are almost an hour and a half. We're not even going to eat till 2, and that's if, then we have to cook something.
But
So,
hey,
thanks.
eating is gonna feel so nice after this.
If you hear
episode.
any tumble or
Tumble?
stomach tumble grumbling things, it's me.
growling at me for not letting her eat.
Yeah. And then maybe my stomach too. anyways.
So, hey, Alicia, I've never heard of Mickey 17. How would
What?
you summarize that for
The
me?
Robert Pattinson ×2 movie? Crazy.
Gasp.
Anyways. It is a, let's see, I want to make sure. Bong Joon-ho movie.
Yes.
If you've watched Parasite, which you should. What are you doing if you haven't watched The Best Picture?
And this is the one right after
Yes.
his Oscar win
Which
for
it
Best
is,
Picture.
I believe, 6 years apart, because I want to say Parasite came out 2019, I think. 2020, 2019, something like that. So it's a decent bit
2019.
apart, yeah. But I mean, COVID, so I understand. So yeah, this is his post-Oscar win movie. So
And
that's interesting.
and what does... How do you feel about that? How do you think this compares to his film of the year
And you know what?
movie?
He got a paycheck. And I think
Interesting.
at the end of the day, he had fun and he got a paycheck, and that's what matters for him. Was it Parasite? Not even close. This is probably one of my least favorite films by him, which I haven't seen a lot, but I've seen some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think I've seen a lot at all. I think I've seen 2. And
I've
then this one,
seen-
so 3.
I've seen 3 as well, but we've seen, I think, one
ones.
different
Mm-hmm.
movie.
So we've both seen Parasite and Mickey 17, and then I've seen Memories of Murder, which I really liked.
And
which
I
is
watched-
supposedly one of his best.
Yes, and I watched Snowpiercer, which was a movie. And I
Was
watched
it-
that not knowing it was by him. I was very surprised to find out that that movie was directed by
Was
him.
it? Would you say better or worse than Mickey 17?
I would say worse.
Okay.
Which I think apparently that might be a hot take. Apparently some people really liked this movie.
Okay.
They made a show adaptation of this same story called
Okay.
Snowpiercer.
Mhm.
And I didn't finish that first season, but it was really good.
Okay.
So maybe that's why I watched this after that, and then I was like, this is not nearly as good as it could be, because I've seen it be better.
Interesting.
So maybe that's an element that
Mhm.
into why I feel that way about it.
So maybe I should watch it, not having watched the TV show, and see what my thoughts are. That
Yeah,
would be
I
very
thi-
interesting, actually.
I can't remember if Snowpiercer is based off of a book. I feel like it has to be, because I feel like
Mhm.
it screams something that needs to be fleshed out, which I think they just don't successfully do in a movie.
Okay.
but it's all based around living on a train and having like a classist society on a train and what that looks like.
Interesting.
And
Which is
that's-
interesting because Mickey 17
And it's
is
very
also based off the
In
book.
this case, I think these two are very similar movies.
Okay. Interesting.
In
Oh,
that
I'm
vibe. I
excited.
actually don't know if I put that together
Yeah.
before.
Well, if you haven't heard about Mickey 17, I'll do a little, or I guess, do you want to do the I did the last spoiler, or non-spoiler. Do you want to do this non-spoiler summary?
Sure.
It's
I would
much shorter.
Love to. Let me pull up that. Pull up a chair, kiddos.
Pull up a chair.
The
If
story.
you haven't seen it, it has Robert Pattinson in it.
Yes.
Of course,
Twice.
twice.
Borderline.
Directed
17
by
times.
Bong
18 times.
Joon-ho. And then it also has, if you saw Blink Twice, it has the main girl from that. Oh, she's great in this movie. And then it has Steven Yeun, I think is
Steven Yeun, the voice
Of
from
Invincible, or he was in
Invincible,
Beef.
and he was in he's so good in
And
Beef, and then
something
he was
else.
in Walking Dead.
Yes. So, there's some good stars in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette.
Oh my gosh, don't forget about
Wonder
them.
why you forgot about them.
We'll talk about that hot take later, which you share, by the way. So we're in it together.
Well, I might have a hot take for you
Okay.
that I've been too
Anyways.
scared to talk about without an audience present.
Whatever. Anyways. It's
But
fine.
so Mickey 17. The story is a disposable employee is sent out on a human expedition to colonize the ice world Niflheim. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated with most of his memories intact.
Yes, so he's called an expendable. He signs up because this is like a world where I guess Earth is not really.
They give up on Earth.
They
and
give
so
up on
they're
Earth.
going to go find other places to just establish life.
Yes, and Robert Pattinson his character Mickey, and then Steven Yeun's character. Excuse me. They
Get
get
chased
into
off,
some
essentially.
trouble for some finance issues, and then while Steven Yeun's character is able to get a pretty good job as like a pilot because he's very charming. I guess that's the impression they gave, was that he always pretty much gets what he wants because he's very charming and very convincing. And then Mickey, on the other hand, not so much. So he's very desperate. So he signs up for the only job available for him, which is an expendable, which is where you get sent to do things that will put your life at risk. And
If you die, you die.
if you
and
die, you
then-
die. And he dies a lot more in this movie than he does in the book. 'Cause
Yes.
They do a lot
Because
more
the
with
book
him.
is Mickey
7 and 8.
7. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in throughout the movie, he dies in a bunch of sometimes silly, sometimes just horrible ways.
Mhm.
And then they
Which they had
reprint.
some funny posters with that. They
Yes.
did like an individual poster for each way he dies, and they had some like different tagline, like dying.
This job bites, and it's this alien about to ban this.
About to bite his head off or something, or frostbite or something. I don't even.
This job is
remember, but
isolating, and he's out in
Yes,
the snow.
yes.
This job.
It was clever. I liked
Yeah,
that. I
it
wish
was a
they
fun
pushed
little-
that a little more.
Fun
But
little
it's
thing.
okay.
And then the expedition that he's on would reprint his body and put all of his memories back into his new body,
Yes.
so then he could continue being expendable and the person that would die if someone needed to die.
Mm-hmm.
And they would experiment on him and have him go out and do stuff, not
Yep.
letting him know why he was doing stuff.
Yep.
A lot of fascinating. It's a really interesting concept.
Mm-hmm. And he dies more, I think, in the movie because they don't push as much the amount of resources that are used to create a new Mickey. In the book, that's a very big plot point. And Marshall, the character that Mark Ruffalo plays in the movie, he is not only a super religious person in the book, way more religious than in the movie. He's not a politician at all in the book. Which I guess, sorry, that's a spoiler. I don't know. It's
Not
not that big a deal. But he really, really hates Expendables because of that reason, because he thinks they're soulless because they're not in their original body. But then they push very big that he uses a lot of resources when they regenerate him in the book, and they're way, way lower on resources and more desperate in the book than in the movie. So that's probably the biggest reason. Maybe they just wanted to make it more dramatic. I wish they did a better montage of him dying so many times. That I feel like would have made it feel a little more movie-like and earned, and it is what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
So that's our quick little summary. So
Yeah, but it's an interesting concept. So. Oh, and then in the trailer, he goes to bed one day because he doesn't die, but they thought he died, so they regenerated him, and he finds out he's a multiple, which is even.
There's 2 Mickeys at the
Oh my
same
gosh.
time.
Yes, so that's even more frowned upon. Like, that's like, they're worse than serial killers. Like, that's how they're treated, is they're just disgusting human beings. Kind of how multiples are treated in the movie, or how their expendables are treated in the book, I would say. At least from Marshall. I wouldn't say from everyone. I don't even know if the community wasn't a big part of the book, I would say.
Interesting.
Anyways,
Very interesting. So
Marshall was the number 1 hater in the book.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So real quick, some of the things that I liked about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest pro to this movie is Robert Pattinson.
Absolutely.
This is a huge role for him.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's his first time being a lead role, but it's one
It's
of
way
the
different.
the biggest challenges, I think. He has this fun little country accent.
Which I will say, after The Boy and the Heron and what he did with his voice, I'm not surprised he could do this, but it was fun
I forgot he was in
seeing him, right? It was fun seeing him do it and hearing him as well have the different voice. It was fun for him.
Remind me, was he the boy or was
No,
he the heron?
he was the
He was
heron
the heron. That's crazy.
with like the crazy like. Sorry, that was Robert Pattinson in that movie.
That's exactly what he was like in that movie.
Yeah, no, he did great.
Oh my gosh, we have Robert Pattinson here for those watching on Spotify.
Oh, hey.
Listening on Spotify.
Hey.
But
Ruin that up.
So he's so great. He does some really interesting stuff whenever the multiples situation arises in differentiating the 2 characters, which we have some issues with how they differentiate, but the differentiation between them is really well done from an acting standpoint.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
So it's really great. He voices over a lot of the exposition in the beginning, which takes probably like 30 to 40 minutes of the movie.
That's
it takes
what's
a
really
long time.
That's another complaint, and that's what's really hard about some book to movie adaptations. You've got to show more than you tell. And I understand sometimes narration can work, but not when it's, the first act of your movie.
Yeah.
That's just too much. If you have them pop in and out, that's one thing, but that's not what they did, and so it doesn't work. I don't know if there's an example ever of when you have that much narration and it works.
It was a lot of narration.
Let us know if you have an example. That would be interesting, actually.
I think there were better ways for the opening to start.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I've seen complaints on the opening act.
But
Which is fair, I think.
So Robert Pattinson, love him. Gotta love him. It's very impressive. And I think a lot of people have regarded this as a highlight role for him.
Yeah.
I think
he's
there's-
definitely not going to get nominated for an Oscar just
No,
because
but-
of how this movie in general was received, but he did well at this movie.
I think,
I don't think he'll be losing any work because of this.
yeah, I think this is a real highlight because people view it as one of the strengths of this movie and a Bong Joon-ho film, which I think some
Yes.
people expected to be a more blockbuster-esque art house film. I don't think it's that, and it feels like it's not trying to be that.
Well, they did give it the budget for that, but
That's what Warner Brothers wanted it to be.
that's true.
It's
And
not
then
what
maybe that
Jung
was the
Soon-ho
disconnect
wanted it to
there.
be.
Maybe that was the disconnect. Maybe he's like, I don't care if it makes a lot of money. It's not my money, and I'm getting a paycheck, so I'm gonna make the art film that I want to make. Maybe that was the disconnect there. And you know what? Good for him, because Warner Brothers is pissing me off lately.
Another pro I have is Naomi Ackie, who plays
Yup,
Nasha, the love
absolutely.
interest to Mickey. I think it is very impressive how you see her in that first scene and you immediately understand
Why he's so
why
enamored with her.
he's so enamored. Yeah.
Mhm.
She does a great job of selling her
Yeah.
their relationship, and it's really sweet. It's equal parts on both of them that it works so well. I think towards the end,
That's one of the
script
highlights, I would
becomes-
say, is the romance part.
Yes,
It's very
the
sweet.
romance very sweet and well steamy as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
There you go.
Almost Challengers.
It's almost
It's
Challengers.
Almost Challengers.
It's close enough. Welcome back, Challengers. A little bit, but I
Which
think
this
towards
one's
the
not going to be
end-
acknowledged at the Oscars either. But it's fine.
I think towards the end, she kind of fights against the script, and I think sometimes she's not winning. But overall, her performance is a big win. For
It's
this
hard
movie.
because she has this big moment where she just yells and just snaps at the politicians and how they're talking about the creepers and Mickey, and they're just dehumanizing all of them and not having any empathy for them. And it almost feels great because she's doing such a great job at it, but then the script just doesn't lead her to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it becomes like should she have acted this in such a big way when her character didn't have build up to this? Maybe it did have build up and it was cut. I don't know.
Does something like that happen in the book?
Not that I can remember off the top of my head, but
Interesting. 'Cause it feels like such a big part of her movie.
Well, and the whole
Or
Act
in the
3 of the book is way different.
I believe that.
So it's, yeah, like there's no, she's not holding a rope with her teeth. Like none of that. They don't ever capture a creeper as far as I remember. I don't think. Whatever. That's not really a spoiler. But anyways,
we'll keep going to try and get through our non-spoiler stuff.
Yeah.
So the last big pro I put was the creepers. They're these little alien creatures that they interact with on the planet, and their design
it's
and
so
execution
cute.
is so cute.
You know
and
what
so
they
fun.
remind me of? They remind me of, I think his name was Morris in Shang-Chi.
Yes,
The little,
they
like-
give very similar vibes.
Yeah.
Except these ones can talk a little.
Kind of.
The big one can talk.
Yeah.
The big mama.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're really fun. I think they give a bit of whimsy to this movie where there otherwise would be much less.
They have a much bigger part in the movie than they do in the book.
And then
Which I think
would
is a
also
plus for this
say
movie.
I think the visuals of the movie, I don't think they're necessarily Oscar worthy, but they're very fun.
That was one of my highlights. Was I thought it was visually appealing. It was very
Yeah.
pretty. I agree. It's not really Oscar worthy. I mean, I wouldn't be mad initially
No.
if it got nominated.
Like, I think, unfortunately, because of how slow this year was getting off, I think it just happens to be one of the better shot movies of the year.
Right now, yes.
So
It's easy to say that.
But
right
at least it
now,
gets
and then we'll
that.
see. Yeah, it looks pretty. And then so I have basically all the same points. The main two cast members, it was visually appealing, and the creepers, very cute.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had the same pros. We had the same, very similar thoughts on what we liked, what worked for us for this movie.
So, what didn't you like?
Okay, so this is this is
When you
gonna
have to lead into it.
This is gonna kind of move into spoiler territory for sure. Let me try to do the ones that aren't spoiler first. So, Steven Yeun's character, I was sad that they kind of wasted him in this movie. I felt like because he's a talented actor, but he just doesn't do a lot. But he's not given a lot either, which I don't know. He's not a huge character in the book either, but I don't know. I wish he got better treatment, and I do think it is partially on him. I think he could have done better with what he was given. I think it was like a pretty mutual thing, like the script and him.
You know what
I would say
this role gives? It gives his Oscar-nominated role in Poor Things. And I think
that's Mark Ruffalo. I'm talking about Steven Yeun, the best friend. We'll get there. Trust me, we will get there.
I was thinking,
And
I
I
was
agree
thinking
with
that
that
you're being a lot
point.
less aggressive on your dislike of this.
We will get there.
I don't know why.
Don't you worry.
But Steven Yeun, okay, got to get in that mind space.
Invincible, Beef.
Sorry, I
Walking
just kind of
Dead.
forgot he was in this movie.
No, and that's the point. Is he doesn't make a big impact, and he's not written to make a big impact. They even try to give him another storyline that's, spoiler, not in the book at all, which is the drug storyline, the opioid or whatever. I forgot what it was. I don't remember what drug it is.
Oh,
I
it's
don't
like
do drugs,
hydrogen.
man. I don't know. It was something like pure oxy or I
Oxy.
think that sounds right, yeah. Anyways, that's not in the book whatsoever. And I don't think it needed to be in the movie. It didn't really do much.
Another thing, because you pointed out the
So-
idea that, like, he came with this friend, and this friend was supposed to be this, like, super charming guy who always got what he wants. But he was not a charming character.
No.
Like, once.
We saw him get what he wanted, but we
didn't hear what he
never-
was saying, and there's not a
No.
single line that he ever gives throughout the movie that would imply he knows how to talk to people.
I agree. And in the book, they just make him like he's just talented and which is why he gets the better job.
Mhm.
He's actually, I believe, a security officer like Naomi's
Nasha.
character, like
Nasha.
Nasha, in the book. They're, I want to say the only two, actually. There's a lot less in the book. They're one of the only two, from what I remember. Anyways, but yeah, it's an interesting idea that's just not fleshed out very well. And then, like I said earlier, I wanted so badly to love Naomi Aki's speech, and I think if she had the build up, I mean, she would have killed that. She did kill that, but it's like there was no build up to it, so it felt like, whoa. I mean, it felt like,
It's a jump.
I'm glad she said that to them. Don't get me wrong, I also hated them, but it did feel like there could have been even
Because
some
that energy
tiny
feels like
elements
it
of like,
would.
I hate you, and
That energy feels like it would have come from the people who were being persecuted.
And
You know?
Yeah, well, and what could have been interesting is, like, she has this moment in the movie where she is, I guess this is kind of spoilers, but she's holding Mickey while he's being poisoned. She has, like, a hazmat suit on. She's, like, with him, holding him while he's dying, and it's a really sweet moment. But she could have had maybe, like, a tiny moment where she was looking at the people doing this to him with an evil look. She could have little moments like that of, like, resentment building up, and
Sure.
then you have this moment of I'm snapping the love of my life. You sent him out to die for real this time, and you're torturing these creatures. Here's my big moment. But they didn't have any of those little moments, at least not that I really felt.
Well, there's that big one where she immediately puts someone head against the cafeteria table and puts a gun to the back of their head whenever
Yeah.
they say some casual comment. But I think that's the only work they go towards making that.
Yeah, and we could have
Arc.
used maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4.
There's plenty of
moments.
opportunities to.
I agree. Like the scene where she's holding him. You could have just had a very quick look. It would have taken just the same amount of time, and that would have been another moment. So, I don't know, man. She was barely a character in the book, so at least she had some character in this movie.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is on Naomi Watts.
I agree.
Or
But
Yeah.
I would also agree very much that
Naomi
the
Ackie.
script did intentionally write her way better than the book did. Like,
Sure.
in the book, I'm not even kidding, she's barely a character. So, which is very unfortunate after seeing a great performance. And then, this is the one where I was like, this could be spoiler territory,
well,
but
remember that we're going to come back to them, so you can be a
yeah,
little vague here.
I'll be a little vague. Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette. This is my hot take. I really like them. I also particularly love Mark Ruffalo. As far as I know about him as a person, I love him as a person. He stands up for very important things, and he's very vocal about it where others are not. And I think that's very important. And I like some of his other work. I really like him in 13 Going on 30. That's a fun movie.
Iconic.
I like his work as Bruce Banner, even when he's not given a whole lot to work with. I think he's fun. Even in Avengers Age of Ultron, which I don't like what they do with Bruce and Natasha, I think he does a good job. Like, he's just interesting to watch. And he has those lines.
He plays like the dynamic a lot deeper than I think he necessarily like he
Yes.
needed to for that movie to be
I
successful.
agree. And so it's interesting. I didn't like him whatsoever in Poor Things, and I don't like him whatsoever in this movie. And
I
like
agree,
you
but
said
you knew that.
earlier, I think that's a good comparison. And I think it's a good comparison because people liked him in both these movies for reasons I dislike him. I know that he's doing a caricature. I understand that. I don't like it. I don't think it's done
Especially because
well,
in
or
both of
maybe-
these, no one else is.
Right.
So it's
Well, I
like
mean, Toni
you're not
Collette
matching
is,
the
but-
energy of the world that you're. But both of these are like essentially symbiotic characters. They're like you
Well,
don't have one without the other.
And I understand. I'm just so maybe it is for me that I'm tired of watching characters be like Donald Trump, like a caricature of him, especially after I saw The Apprentice and what Sebastian Stan did. That's not a caricature. That's a good performance. I'm tired of seeing a caricature of Donald Trump when he's our president. It just feels like it's, and I want to clarify what I mean by that. I'm just so tired of him. And it's like we're making fun of him, but at the end of the day, our country still voted for him, and that just makes it very frustrating. And that's not in defense of the president, just to clarify. That's just saying, so we're going to make
What
fun
are we
of him.
doing with
Yeah,
this?
what are we doing with it? Because at some point it has to turn more serious, which I think Sebastian Stan did really well, of like, here's this monster. It's not funny. It's not a joke. He's so stupid, and yet he's in such an important role in our country, and we should be taking that more seriously. And that's maybe why I don't like that it's a caricature, because I don't find it funny in real life, and so I don't find it funny in a movie. And I understand that Bong Joon-ho said that it wasn't a caricature of him, it was like a, supposed to be a placeholder for any fascist leader. But then again, then why are we joking about that? I just don't. I think there's a time and place, and maybe Poor Things was a better place than this movie. I'll give him that, because it's not like he was trying to be Donald Trump in that other movie. But it's just, and that's the other thing. It's like Poor Things, I don't find it funny that he's like an evil man, because I don't find that funny in real life.
Mm-hmm.
It's different if you're doing a caricature of a stupid person not in power, but it's a different thing when you're doing a caricature of an evil person in power.
Sure.
So maybe that's why I don't like it. And then Toni Collette going along with it. At least they're in it together in this movie. But the whole sauce thing, I'm like, girl, let it go. Let it go. That's another spoiler for the book. She's not in it whatsoever in the book. Nor is the sauce thing come into play. They don't go to the creepers in order to get one of the tails to turn it into sauce. That's not a plot point at all. And she's not a character in the book. And I think that's one of the more positive points of the book. And Marshall in the book, I think, is less... He's still evil, but he's less annoying in the book. It's more like serious and has depth. And
would you say it's kind of like President Snow-ish in the book?
No, I think President Snow is written much better, much, much better. But in the book, he's not a politician at all, and so therefore he's not, a caricature of anybody. We're not reading about a bad political figure, which we just see so much of nowadays. He's a very religious person, so he hates Expendables because they think they have no soul, and Multiples is even worse because it's like cheating death in a way. I feel like that makes sense for him, and I feel like it's a serious take, and we see some of that in real life with some extreme religious people. Not that all religion is bad, not that all people in part of religions are bad, but we do see that some people take it too far, and
I think people abuse the idea of religion.
Yeah. So, and he does in that movie, or in the book, and I think that's much more interesting to read and makes more sense for his character than whatever they're doing with his character in this movie.
Sure.
Which, to Mark Ruffalo's credit, they certainly write him way different in this movie, and he matches that energy. But it's just so aggravating. So it's not all on him, I guess. I mean, he still chose to do the caricature.
I
don't know. His character was written as a dumb political figure, so...
I think it's really interesting that Jung Joon-ho has come out and say a bunch of countries around the world have been like, why did you make this character so much like our politician of choice? And I think on paper in the script it may have been written to be a placeholder for any dictator.
And
I
then
think Mark Ruffalo is the one who very actively did a lot of the Trump mannerisms and speech patterns.
Yeah.
So I think there is a point where there is a reason so many movies are targeted at the U.S. because the U.S. is a huge movie market, and we're going to be the ones who primarily consume this.
Yeah.
Most times.
And that's another thing. Maybe I would have been ready to laugh about it before he got elected again. Maybe I would have. And that's the other thing. Maybe Mark Ruffalo, he filmed this at a time he didn't get reelected.
I think you're seeing a lot of people say that some movies are coming out in a world
assuming
that meant to be not the second term of the Trump presidency.
That's actually very true.
And I think...
Which doesn't make it less annoying, but it does kind of take the blame off a little bit, because he had an intention that just didn't age well.
I think it becomes, at that point, it may have been written as a, what if this happened? And then it becomes a... And then it keeps that energy instead of it being a, why did this happen?
Yeah.
Which I think, at this point, people would find more constructive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, that's not necessarily the movie's fault, because this was a movie that was supposed to come out like a year ago.
Right. And I think that would have hit much better. I maybe would have been able to laugh. And then it would have aged... It still would have aged poorly at some point, but...
Yeah.
They didn't know that.
Actually, since I brought it up, do you think this movie would have been better received if it came out a year ago?
Absolutely. Because I think interest was there a year ago. It's kind of like Snow White, too. Although Snow White was more... I think it would have done better because the controversy would have had less time to...
Fester.
Yes. This one is more... It would have done better because interest was higher and more relevant this
Closer
time
to
last year.
His Oscar win.
And then it wouldn't have... That's true. That's a good point, too. And then it wouldn't have hit so poorly with some people. I know I'm... At the end of the day, I'm still the odd one out on that. I know a lot of people liked his performance and say that's one of the best parts of the movie. So I acknowledge that I'm still the odd one out. But at least for me, it would have hit better. And maybe I would have been ready to laugh a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't want to laugh about it now, so... Sorry. What can you do?
My turn?
Yes.
Or do you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
So my cons, one of my biggest ones are they just kind of randomly make the two clones of Mickey different characters.
Way
And then they
different.
kind of explain it like, oh yeah, this just happens sometimes, and they don't show examples. That's another case of
Yeah.
telling and not showing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which
then
doesn't happen in the book either.
yeah,
so-
and then we'll talk about why it feels weird that the characters are the way they are and they're not switched.
That's more spoiler territory,
in their
so
roles.
we'll talk about
about that, but I thought that was a really weird plot. Like, the way that was written felt
Mhm.
very weird.
that. Yeah.
And then, like she was saying, Mark Ruffalo, I think ultimately the performance is not matching the energy of the overall movie. So, it feels very jarring to see him on screen basically anytime he shows up. Because he feels like he's from a different movie. He feels like he's from Poor Things. And this is not Poor Things. At least in that
Yeah.
movie, there were parts that he sort of matched. But overall, I think I don't love that movie. I think the movie is still better than he is in that movie.
It just, at a certain point, a caricature, if it's... I don't know if it's not done well. I don't know. It just seems embarrassing to me. It just seems like...
Like, it feels like a role in a comedy, and this is not a comedy.
I don't know. I just can't put my finger on it. If he's doing a poor job, or if I just don't like the context in which he's doing it.
I think it's a little bit of everything, honestly.
I don't know. Because, yeah, that's true. I mean, even if he's doing a good job, he's still picking the bad moments to do it in. So that is still on him. I don't know. I don't know, man.
So, and then Toni Collette, I think if you had a more
So
serious...
talented, but what are we
I think
doing
if you had
here?
a more serious Marshall, and then a toned back version of her character, I think that could have been a fun dynamic to watch.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
I think them two together is too much, and then I
Mhm.
almost kind of liked it a little bit when she was alone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Towards the end of the movie, she's more alone.
And I think that there, I think, is where she is the most interesting.
I agree. And again, that would have been... She would have felt more individual in what she's doing if he was more serious, like the book.
Yeah, and I think if he was a more serious character, then her doing the whole sauce bit could have been a little bit more funnier.
Yeah.
Because
I agree
honestly,
with
I
that.
think I want to be in a world where the sauce bit was as funny as this movie thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted so badly to like it. I'm so sorry, Toni Collette.
I want to call her the sauce queen, but she's
I just
not.
can't. I just can't.
But and then
And also, especially because the sauce thing turned into like an animal cruelty thing of like, I don't care about these animals at all. I just want to make my sauce. Then it becomes like an eye roll of like, I don't want to see animal cruelty for your sauce that I never really cared about that much in the first place.
yeah,
So
and then that leads me into another point. I think this movie just has too much plot going on for a movie.
they add things that are not in the book that didn't need to be in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And
not
then-
that the book was automatically 100% better. I do think there are some things the movie does better, like Naomi Ackel's character, Nasha, way better in the movie than in the book. But it's just, I don't know why movies do that. I don't know why they add things that are not in the book and then don't do things that are in the book and then are surprised when people don't like it.
Sure.
I don't know, man.
I think-
you already have way too much material, so why aren't you doing all...
And another
I don't
thing I
know.
think is interesting in the exposition with Mickey leading
Mhm.
into where this movie actually is taking place, they introduce a lot of interesting stuff about the lore of
Mhm.
like multiples And I think
Yeah.
someone once, like, I saw some review saying that sounds like a much more interesting movie than you have going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very true. Like, did you need to show this example and show so many shots of this example of this happening on Earth?
Because now I want to watch a movie about that.
Yeah, and we're spending time that could be just a throwaway line. Yep, some weird things happened on Earth about who was what, and that could have just been in dialogue. And this was not a thing you needed to show us because it's not relevant to the story we're watching.
It was so interesting, and it's so funny because in other areas where they told us and didn't show us anything, it's like, I don't know, pick a lane. Why
So
is the
you're
thing
gonna
that you
show
showed
us
us
this random example
more
that has
interesting
nothing to
than the
do with
movie?
the story of the serial killer on Earth, but we're not gonna see where the other clones differentiated at all? Like, that's where we're gonna put the energy and not with more chance
Yeah,
for
I mean,
Robert Pattinson to act and show range in this
I
role.
will say I understand what they were trying to do with that. They were trying to show why people hated multiples. I kind of liked it better which the book kind of does that too a little bit. They have a little scene like that of like an example of someone doing something as a multiple, but it's just like I don't know.
Overall, in the,
I would have liked it better since these are crazy people that have no reason to have, do what they do. They're shown to have lack of empathy. Maybe that's all you need.
Mhm.
You don't really need it. Why are you justifying that, basically? Like, you didn't need that, especially if you're going to spend this time showing this when you didn't need it and not show this, which you maybe did need.
I think ultimately the problem is, like some book adaptations, there's just too much that they feel needed to be included for it to be a movie. I think Mickey 17 or Mickey 7 as an adaptation would be a really interesting show. I honestly think it's very similar to Snowpiercer in that vein, where I think the book combined a lot of things and it didn't realize what living in an ecosystem on a train with all of what's left of human society, like, it doesn't flesh that out very well, whereas the show does that super well.
More shows. That's something I do like that Netflix is doing, is that they're doing limited series, and sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah, I agree.
You just need 4-hour-long episodes instead of 1 4-hour movie, because people are just not going to watch that. Yeah. Sometimes that's what you need.
I agree.
That's
So-
the hard part, though, is then you can't make much money off of that because it's not going to go in the theaters. That's the big difference there.
So that, I think,
But
wraps
this isn't
up
making
our...
a lot of money either, so.
But we'll get into that. So that is going to be
Yes.
the end of our non-spoiler talk. So we're going to start getting into spoilers for Mickey 17
Yes.
and Mickey 7, the book it is based off of. So
Yes.
if you're interested in catching up on any of those, you're going to want to stop listening now and just come back to us once you're done watching or reading.
And I will say, I do think the book would be worth reading because it's pretty short. It's 300 pages, except it's a smaller book dimension-wise and bigger font than I feel like I usually see. So it's really not. If you were to flesh that out, it'd probably be like 150 pages or 200 pages. So it's a quick read. I read it in like, I don't know. I only took a day to read it,
Yeah,
so
it's pretty quick.
just like 8 hours, maybe 7, 8 hours, something like
Also,
that.
for those who didn't know, we are basically book talk now.
I am. Thank you very much. With my half a library.
Library.
Anyways.
So,
Okay, so
starting
spoilers.
this off, Alicia, I have not read the book. Tell me, what is... Okay, so if you had to choose between the book or the movie, which would you pick as the better story overall?
I will say, I feel like I was more entertained with the movie just because of the cast.
Okay.
And the book does have moments where I'm like, I'm kind of bored.
In a short book? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
But I don't know. Again, it was a short read, which this was not a particularly long movie. I don't know. I actually kind of have them on close to being on par with each other. I would still put the book above the movie, but maybe that's just me being like, the book is always better. Because it almost always is, people.
Interesting.
But anyways, I would say the book is a little better. But the movies would take up much less of your time and still be pretty entertaining, I guess.
Okay. A comparable experience, would you say?
Mm-hmm. I agree. But anyway, for anyone who wanted to read the book, I think it's worth the read. Anyways, do you want me to talk about what happens in the book?
I would love you to talk about what happens in the book.
Okay, so I put a lot of bullet points. There's a lot of differences. The biggest one, which is in the title, there are only 8 total Mickeys. So you have Mickey 7 is the main character of the book. And this is a kind of getting into spoiler territory, like we said, where in the movie, he is the more shy character, even though he's the narrator. I would say he's the less interesting personality. I actually thought Mickey 18 was more interesting. We just never got anything from him. And it didn't really make sense to me why the person who didn't remember being left behind would be so angry and the person that was left behind was not angry. In the book, the personalities are basically switched, I would say, where he's very angry that he was left behind, and the other Mickey's like...
The one who didn't experience that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know, man. I'm starving because I just got reprinted. You keep losing us rations. He's just like... And he's like, well, you know these people better, so... Because Mickey 7 is like, we should switch off on our adventures and going out to get food because that's the only way to not get caught and to make it fair. But he's like... But you know these people, so, like, you should go. Mickey 7 basically goes on, like, all the adventures. Mickey 8 doesn't do anything. And that's not really a plot point of this movie, I would say.
They talk about the idea of it a lot.
Yeah. So...
And then they never do it.
They have a lot of beef in the book, man. A lot of beef. They do still try to kill each other, like in the movie. But Mickey 7 is the one trying to kill Mickey 8 rather than Mickey 18. Like, why would he
It
care?
feels like an interesting switch. I can't even...
Yeah.
Like, trying to think about why they would change that, it doesn't super make sense.
I don't know, because I think the far more interesting personality is the one that's not the main one.
Yeah, the one who stops becoming what Mickey 17 was printed out as.
Yeah. And it could have explored that idea, because I was thinking about this. They ask several times in the movie, what's it like to die? And he never really answers that, and I thought maybe that's because he... for the most part, doesn't remember dying all that much. But in the book, he does. He does remember dying most of the time, especially when he's... And then he's left behind and he's super angry because he realizes how much they treat him like trash. And he's angry about that, rightfully so, and that's so interesting to read, and then you don't get that in the movie. And I think that's one of the biggest things the book does way better. So, and then... I also said this earlier, there's no drug subplot. Wasn't needed. Didn't miss it in the book. Mickey 7 and 8 had switched personalities, made way more sense. Also, big spoilers for the movie and the book in the ending is Mickey 18 does die and Mickey 8 dies in the book as well. But it was off book, and in the movie you see him die. And that's another thing. Is it like... It doesn't feel earned because Marshall's like, doesn't he say something like, are you afraid to die? Or like...
He says you're afraid to die because that's when he's kind of like, oh, you are a person. I can see that you are scared of dying right now.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we were supposed to feel emotional about that, and I just didn't. Again, it was another one of those moments where it didn't feel earned.
Mm-hmm.
So... I don't know.
Which is not on Robert Pattinson. It's on
No,
the
not
script.
at all. Yeah. And then in the book, the way the ending happens is Marshall sends Mickey out when he finds out that they're multiples. And it's because there's like a second girl that's introduced in the movie. Her name's Kai. In the book, I think I want to say she has a different name, but anyways, she is a traitor in the book and betrays them and tells Marshall herself that they're multiples. He doesn't just find out because, like in the movie, he saves Marshall and the other one's shooting at the creepers, or Marshall, I guess. So, that's the other thing. Doesn't Mickey 18 try to kill Marshall?
Yes.
Well, I wonder why. That's another thing. I feel like Mickey 17 would be more of the, I want to kill Marshall.
Well, it's because they made Mickey 18 the angry one.
Yeah, and that's just the other... It just doesn't
Randomly.
make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense.
It's like, you're making him the angry one and you're explaining it as a randomness factor in the printing the Expendables, but then
Somehow
You're- but-
Palpatine returned. Somehow Mickey 18 was angry.
yeah, and then you have this character that could easily fit that role and be angry that he was left behind, and because he had to survive, he's now so angry because he's forced to live through what being expendable is like if he wasn't just reprinted and had to go through that on his own. And there's like you could have made that the character, and that would have worked so well.
Yep. I don't know, man.
It's just such a weird switch that I can't fathom, because I think it would have artistically made so much more sense to keep it the way it was.
Yep, I agree. But in the book, the ending is when Marshall finds out there are multiples. He sends both of them out with 2 bombs to find the Creeper's lair. He knows they know where it is because Mickey 7 was abandoned with the Creepers. So he's like, oh, so you know where the lair is, because they save him in the book as well.
Yeah.
And they say, go down there and, arm the bombs so we can threaten them so they'll leave or, do what we say or whatever. He goes down there. Mickey 8, I don't know what happens to him. He dies. And then Mickey 7 is like, I have an idea. And goes back and tells Marshall, leaves the bomb with the Creepers. Doesn't arm it, I don't think. But he tells Marshall, I told the Creepers how to arm and set off this bomb. So now they're going to have the power over us. So you need to leave them alone, and you need to leave me alone, not kill me. Mickey 8 is dead. We're not a multiple anymore. Let it go. That's how the expendable program ends. And that's how he leaves the Creepers alone, rather than dying, as he does in the movie. So, I don't know if I really care. I think it fits in the book because then there's a sequel that totally follows what he does in the ending. The movie, not so much. I don't think there needs to be a sequel, nor do I think at all there will be a sequel.
I would agree.
So, he also bluffs in the book, though. He does not tell the Creepers how to arm it. They have no idea, but he bluffs. So I thought that was funny.
Did the Creepers talk in the book?
Yes. Although in the book, he just kind of knows. He learns what they say somehow. And in the movie, he has a translator, which I think makes more sense. So, no sauce, lady. That's exactly word for word what I said.
Yeah.
Didn't miss her. And then, of course, Marshall was a lot more serious. Kai and Nasha have their personalities reversed. I think that's another thing the movie does better than the book, because Nasha was not that interesting of a character. She's still nice, and they still have a good relationship. She still likes both Mickeys, but she's just so much better in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk a lot more. I said this earlier, but they talk a lot more and care a lot more about the food rations. It's a huge part of the book. It's just constantly, anytime Mickey or his best friend pisses off Marshall, he punishes both of them by lowering their rations. And yeah, I wouldn't say it's a part of the book they talk about a lot. I wouldn't say I particularly cared all that much, because at the end of the day, he didn't die from starvation, so it's not like it really led to anything. It was more just oh, my life sucks. I have even less food, and I have to share with the multiple, and it wasn't that important. And then Marshall was not a politician, and big spoiler, Marshall does not die in the book. He does not die. He's in the sequel. I have not read the sequel, and I don't care to be honest with you, but he doesn't die in the book. I do like that he dies in the movie, because I hated him in the movie, and I didn't like him in the book, and that scares me. Which I understand it's, so you can have a sequel, but it's oof.
Yeah.
Good luck to Mickey. I wonder if the expendable program comes back. I have no idea. I didn't read the sequel. At least in the movie, you're like, thank goodness he's gone, right?
Yeah.
So, especially if you're going to base it off fascist leaders, at least he dies, So, could be worse.
And then, are we good to maybe just break down by character?
Yeah, I'm down.
So, first off, obviously, we have to talk about Mickey, Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you were to compare some of the roles that he's done, because he's had some very well-known roles, Where would you kind of ballpark this performance around?
It definitely reminds me of The Boy and the Heron the most, just because of the voice.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what all he's been in. He's been in quite a lot, and a lot of it's very serious. Or, like, even when it's really not, like Twilight, it's still, he plays it as serious. And, like, Remember Me, Harry Potter, Tenet, Batman.
Oh, I love him in Tenet.
Yeah. I really, Devil All the Time. Gosh. There's really not a role that I have seen where he is fun and campy like this, except for Boy and the Heron. And again, that one we only heard his voice. This one we
he's
get to
embodying
see
it.
everything, and I think that's very impressive. And I hope that can be the light that comes from this movie, even though it wasn't really received well and it's not making a lot of money. I hope people still see this and understand that he has range. So, good for him. Hopefully they don't. I don't think he will. He's Batman. He'll be fine.
Oh, he's gonna be great.
He'll
Do
be
you
fine.
think?
And I think he's in the Odyssey as well. I want to say. That's a stacked
That'd be
cast.
interesting.
Everyone's in the Odyssey.
If you're not in the Odyssey, you need to get a new manager in Hollywood.
Yep.
No, that's like the thing. Wasn't that an Abbott Elementary joke where it's like, if you're a white actor and you're not an Oppenheimer, what are you doing?
I don't know. I don't remember, but that seems like one they would make. That's funny.
That was really funny. But so, would you say, off the top of your head, would you put Mickey as one of his like top 5 performances?
No.
I also would not, but it's up. I think it's certainly up there
It's hard because it's not really his
because he's not in a great
fault.
movie.
It's just not a good movie.
I think if this was a better movie, where his role ultimately was a part of making this huge masterpiece, I think I could easily see the world where that happened.
And if he got to play the more interesting personality as the main character,
Sure, yeah,
that maybe would have made it better.
I agree.
Because that was also more of like a nuanced thing rather than the shy one. You were like, okay, we've seen him we've
Movie
seen him
be
half
this.
the movie. Yeah, let's spend the second half of the movie diving into the more like serious, angry character. But whatever.
What you gonna do?
If it wasn't broke, don't fix it, according to the book. So.
And then, like, we talked a lot about 17. We talked a lot about 18. Was there anything
Mhm.
else you thought we needed to add to those?
Not really. I just wish they were switched.
I completely agree.
I feel like it was so frustrating because I was so interested in 18's character, and I just feel like we never really got to know him.
Yeah.
I was like begging for glimpses into his life and why he thinks this way, and it was just chopped up to, sometimes these things happen.
It happens. What you gonna do?
And I hate that. That kills me inside.
That feels so lazy.
That's why I'm really glad I did read the book, because I almost got that satisfaction. I
Mhm.
just wish the movie did that too.
Okay, our next person on the call sheet is Nasha.
Love her. Love Naomi Aki. She's doing great.
Yep. Like I said, you see her in that first scene, and you immediately get it.
You're like, I understand. She's pretty.
This
she's
is a woman
nice.
you dive
she's
plague
fun.
for.
Absolutely. It's one of those moments. We watched Aaron Brockovich last night, and I also feel like you have one of those moments where the biker just collapses to the ground because he's so like already enamored by her, and you're like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
it takes a special person, and it takes writing a character a certain way to have that immediate hook of like, I get it. And she brings that. I think it's fun. Yeah.
And then I also put she has a very spicy role here for a hot second.
She does. In the book, I mean, she definitely knows that they're multiples and does stuff with both for sure. But I don't at least remember there being a scene like the movie where there's almost like a threesome and then they get interrupted. I don't
Those
think there's anything like that.
cowards.
I don't think the other girl too that turns them in, that's supposed to be like Kai. I think she like respects Mickey, but I don't remember there ever being a friend or like a romance. There's not, because he's like, they're both in agreement, Mickey 7 and 8. They're like, she would murder us if we ever like get with somebody else.
Mhm.
And that's not a thing in the movie. They actually like, which she is very protective of them, but she's like, okay, you can have this one, I can have this one, or whatever.
Interesting.
She's
That's
like, okay.
that's very different.
Yeah. Well, in the movie they do that, but in the book they really don't
Mhm.
at all.
Interesting. And then we talked a lot about our big speech already, and think we said everything we need to say about that one.
Yeah.
And then Kenneth Marshall, we've also talked a lot about him. Caricature, way too much. And then we talked about how a lot of different countries are being like, hey, why did you use our fascist dictator in your movie? And he's like, well, that's what they all say. So I just think that's an interesting note from him.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know, man. I
think,
just wish they
but
didn't
also
turn
I
it
think
into a
that's another
joke.
good point that in the vein of if you are making this role to be like everyone else, if we feel this way about it right now, isn't that just how everyone's feeling about that role right now?
I don't know. Everyone's loving that role as far as I see. So I'm glad everyone else is enjoying it. I'm glad everyone else enjoyed Poor Things. I wish I got it. So sorry. I don't know, man.
I feel like
I still like Mark Ruffalo.
I feel like I haven't seen people loving it. At least
Really?
I haven't seen a whole lot specifically about him from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like from what I've been seeing, without looking obviously, but just like from what I've seen, any interaction I've seen about his role was not necessarily positive.
Interesting. So maybe it is more mixed than I thought, because I've seen nothing but positive. So, but I mean, obviously you've seen what you've seen too. So maybe it's more mixed than I thought. That's
Maybe.
interesting.
Going ahead and skipping down to Toni Collette, The Sauce is Life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think we really broke that down where I think if he was a more serious character and she was the more whimsy one, I think her role would have worked a lot better.
When I liked the scene where she was by herself towards the end, and because I think that dynamic worked when it was just her, and because it was still like a caricature, but it took a more serious tone because she used, I think, her own blood for her last sauce, right? Or someone's own blood. She used blood somehow for her last sauce, which I was like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was far more interesting.
Yeah. And then Stephen Yeun with Timo. Why was he in this movie?
Where'd he go?
Did we need Stephen Yeun?
I forgot at some point that he was in this movie, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think
Even
just
with
a
the
poorly
drug subplot, they
poorly
didn't do
done
anything.
character, added stuff that didn't add to the movie at all.
They told us he was charming, and we never saw it.
Yeah.
Even with Stephen Yeun, like, you have the perfect key to make him charming,
He's just not.
and you just didn't do anything with that.
Interesting. And then the actress who did
Kai.
meh.
Yeah.
Take her or
Whatever.
leave her. I think
Yeah.
she
Didn't
acted.
shine, didn't
Didn't
drag
dull.
it down, yeah. Was just there. Could have been worse, could have been better.
One thing I did want to ask, though. The red button with Mickey. And, like, the red button that killed his mom. And then the idea that the button came back and he was judging that he killed his mom when he was a kid because of the defect in the car. Was that a thing in the book as well?
I want to say maybe he mentions his mom, but there's never a moment where he's like, I want to kill myself because I blame myself for my mom's death.
Interesting.
It's never a big dramatic moment. Which, that's another thing where it's like, it's too much plot. You didn't do anything interesting with that. It's an interesting idea, but you didn't flesh it out.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't show anything important, and you just told us, like, a minimal amount of stuff about it, and then it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it feels like the amount of stuff in this movie
Underdeveloped.
is just so perfect for a TV show and so a problem for a movie that's only so long.
Either that or take stuff out.
Yeah, I agree.
You
Pick
can't
a
have it all.
Pick a concept and a theme and go with that, and to have something really good.
Yeah.
Than a bunch of half-baked concepts
Yep.
in a movie, and then you get this. I think
Absolutely.
is the ultimate takeaway.
I don't know. We already kind of talked about, if we're moving on to crew,
Yeah.
we already kind of talked about Bong Joon-ho.
Post Parasite
Very,
Oscar win.
very talented. I think,
And
I agree
we
that
love
his-
Parasite, by the way. I
Yes,
think Parasite was
absolutely.
very deserving of that Best Picture win.
yeah.
So,
It's disappointing that this is such a step down. It's certainly not the first time that's happened to a director, and I do think it's partially a disconnect between his vision, maybe some of the cast's vision, and the studio's vision.
yeah, it
It's
feels
just
like there was a lot of
disconnect.
chefs in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question is, so we both have seen 3 Bong Joon-ho movie. I feel like I might have been saying that wrong for a while. Director Bong Joon-ho. We've watched 3 movies. So, of your three, how would you rank them?
I would say definitely Mickey 17, Memories of Murder, Parasite. Like from bottom to top.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify.
I would rank the three I've watched, bottom to top, Snowpiercer, then Mickey 17, then Parasite.
Yeah. We definitely need to watch more. I'm going through the Russo brothers filmography. I'm going through Bong Joon-ho's filmography. And also for Snow White, I was watching all the other live actions I hadn't seen so far. Some I wanted to rewatch, so that was taking some time. So I'll get to it. Okay, I promise.
I heard Okja looks really interesting to me.
Yes. I want to see that one. I want to see, I think there's one called Mother.
Yes. I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting
there's
because of the
others.
three I've watched, like Parasite is so far above the other two. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting of where people thought this movie was going to be after Parasite. I don't know. And then another thing I wanted to ask is, what kind of movie do you think Bong Joon-ho makes next?
I think he just needs something where he has a big paycheck and is given the reins. Maybe you should work with Netflix. I would trust his vision more than the Russos, honestly. I think he would, because I feel like he probably had the reins way more for his other films, which is why they were so well made. So maybe he does need to work with someone who lets him have the reins. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's not inherently bad that Netflix doesn't have any like close eyes on the creations of their projects. If you have the right people that can do something well with it,
Do you
not
think
the Russo
well, but
brothers.
now do you think they'd let him after Mickey 17?
I don't know. I don't think he
whatever
would
he's
fit.
doing next, I think it is going to have a much smaller budget.
Yeah, but then I think that's fine. I think he's proven he can do a lot with that, and at the end of the day, he's creating art that, for the most part, that's interesting to watch. And I don't think you always need a budget for that.
Was Parasite? That was an A24 movie, wasn't it?
I think so. Let me Google that. Do you want to move on to the other crew members while I look that up?
Surely. So, I don't know what happened to
He
it.
also wrote. He was the writer. You wrote his, I think, like middle name and
Right,
first name
right.
backwards. So I
So-
deleted it.
He was Bong Joon-ho wrote most, from what I could see, to all of his previous movies that he's
No.
worked.
Okay, go ahead. It's okay.
What? What's now?
Parasite was not A24. It was Neon. Same
Oh, interesting.
distributor as Anora.
Good for
Well,
you.
a lot, but that's just
Yeah.
the one I thought about.
That is interesting.
cool.
I feel like in that vein, maybe him and
stick with
A24
me.
need to be on a phone call
That's true.
because I feel like A24 is
That would
pretty up his alley.
That feels like his vibe. He could do some, because they're really good at finding people who can do a lot with a small budget, and that's him. So yeah, that would be great.
You know what? Okay. You know what I'd be interested to see? I think with some of the elements of Parasite,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe some because of his creature work with the creepers. I think maybe I'd like to see him do something in the horror space,
Mm-hmm.
especially if he does do something with A24. I think he could do something interesting there.
Yeah, I agree. He could create some fun horror films.
And I think he could easily get a big name actor to be in that. And I think
Yeah.
he worked like another, maybe not exactly Robert Pattinson, but somewhere around that vein. I think a lot of
Maybe
people are
Naomi
looking for
Ackie,
A24.
take her from that movie.
Sure. And she did great in Blink Twice. Another,
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd call it horror, but like thriller.
Thriller type movie. It'd be like, again, up his alley. I feel like they
Yeah.
could do a lot of great work together. That would be very fun. Let us
I
know
think
what
that
you
would be-
think he
I
should
think that
do
would be
after
great.
this.
Yeah. I would be really interested to hear some ideas on that. And then the second writer credited for this movie was Edward Ashton, and this is his first and only credit on IMDb for writing or anything in Hollywood.
I was gonna say, for it being his first, this is not bad. Even though I didn't love the movie, if this is your first right off the bat, it's certainly not a shining debut.
Yeah, but it's definitely.
it's-
it feels like a
the
good jumping off
elements
point
are
for
there.
someone who's
I
first.
agree. The
But my thing
elements
is,
are
how does
there.
a writer write with a Best Picture award winner on their first go?
I don't know. Maybe they knew each other. I don't know. It's interesting.
Imagine jumping all of the. 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 Imagine jumping all all of the typical steps
Yeah.
of film writing, and then you're just writing with
I don't know, man. Maybe they knew each
on
other.
the
Maybe he's
follow-up
a
project.
maybe
That's
he's a
crazy.
nepo baby.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like that almost.
Nowadays.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of, because how does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
So, the reviews are all pretty similar in the same
Pretty
vein.
solid. And I feel like for the most part, I agree with them.
Yeah. IMDb is 7 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 78% critic.
It's a little high for me,
73%
but
audience.
it's fine.
I think those are a little high for both of them. I'm surprised critics weren't harsher. I'm not as surprised that critics
Mm-hmm.
or that audience was in the 70s, but I think it's interesting they're lower than critics on this one.
Yeah.
And then Metacritic was a 72, 73% positive, 25% mixed, and 2% negative. Ultimately, I think I'm in the mixed category.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of ideas, and I think there's enough good performances that I think this movie is easily watchable.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a movie that's easily watchable in whatever format is most convenient for the viewer.
Yes.
So, but it's definitely, I think, worth a watch at some point
Mm-hmm.
for most people. So, and then it has a B cinema score.
I
So,
feel like that's a little low. Well,
I
don't know,
think,
man.
I think considering we just said you can watch it wherever, and it would be the same experience, I think that's why it's a B.
yeah.
I don't think it's a movie that demands to be seen in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it's something you're interested in, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're into Bong Joon-ho movies, if you like Robert
There's not that
Pattinson,
much else
yeah,
coming
it's
out right
easily
now,
one
so-
of the biggest movies that have come out in 2025 so far.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a fun. I would say it's a pretty fun ride.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I remember it way more vividly than some of the movies I've watched yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
I pulled up the numbers.
oh my gosh, I
If
also
you want me to read that.
go for the numbers. Give me the numbers.
So the budget was 118 million,
Mhm.
which after talking about the Electric State, that's not even that much.
It's it's pretty reasonable, but everything has to be in the context of
yes.
okay, but can
Mhm.
it make that back?
And it's the answer is no. But anyways, so the opening weekend was pretty low, 19 million.
For that
Oof.
is
Oof.
that is low.
It has already surpassed the production budget, but not by a lot. It says here the worldwide box office was 100. It's currently 121 million.
Okay.
So
So that's
barely
made back
above.
the production budget, and that doesn't account for marketing and advertising.
marketing. Mm-hmm.
And I think for this movie specifically, I feel like that had to be pretty big because I was seeing a lot of stuff for this movie for a
Mhm.
long time even.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's only made about 43.5 million domestic, and then about 77.5 million international. So international is pulling more,
I'd-
which I'm not very surprised. I'm not surprised by that
That makes a lot of
because
sense.
of Bong Joon-ho. Like I bet he has more of a reputation over there. People know him more over there. People over here, I feel like, only started talking about him with Parasite mostly. At least that's when I heard about him.
Mhm.
But that's also around the time I really only started really getting into movies. So I don't know. I'd be interested to hear from someone who has been into movies for a while, had they known about him before that. So I don't know. That'd be interesting.
So it looks like an in-development project for Bong Joon-ho is going to be an untitled animated project.
I was gonna say,
That's
I think he could be
interesting.
fun for animation.
I would be really interested to see what he has to add to the animation
'Cause
sphere.
I don't think he's done that before, but
Nothing that I've seen on here.
honestly, he can do whatever he wants. I'll watch it. He's fun.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
what do you think? Oh, that's the other thing is I think very recently, like the 25th, it's now on
Digital. right?
digital. Yes, so quick. So,
I'm
what do you think
curious.
it's gonna end at?
I'm actually curious to check the iTunes store to see if it's in the top 10.
Right, because
iTunes
it's already
store.
at 121, but it's now on digital, and I don't know if it's still in our theater. Actually, I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
Oof.
Dang
So
it.
that's probably on par with where it's going to be. It might end with like a 130, but if they're already taking it out of theaters, like that's it for its theatrical box office.
Interesting. I'm not seeing it on digital actually.
Interesting.
Hold on. Am I spelling
It
this
is
wrong?
on there, right?
No, I lied. I spelled
Is
Mickey wrong.
Okay.
It's on pre-order.
Did you
actually,
say
right now.
Mikey?
I did. I did. Oh,
He
Mikey.
kept leaving out the C.
It's because we keep talking about
Mikey
Madison.
Madison. What a queen.
But yeah,
She's
apparently it's only
invading
on pre-order
everything.
right
I love
now,
that.
so we don't know what it's going to do on digital
I
yet.
thought it was supposed to be there on the 25th. That's interesting. Maybe it just went up for pre-order on the 25th.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I think it's going to be... I'm
Ugh.
really interested to see how it does, because a lot of movies do really good on digital these days,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of people are just waiting to watch things at their house.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested. I don't think it has a lot of, like, U.S. mainstream appeal.
Mm-hmm. But maybe international.
International, maybe? I don't...
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know if it accounts for international numbers on iTunes.
I don't know.
That'd be interesting to look at. But currently in our top 10 for iTunes Store today, it's The Hunger Games collection, Last Breath, Baby Girl, Wicked.
Baby Girl's still up there.
Flight Risk and One of Them Days are up here, so a lot of new releases
One of
that
Them
didn't
Days.
get a lot of viewership in theaters.
Mhm.
That being said, One of Them Days is one of the highest grossing this year.
I liked
I
that
think
movie.
it's in the top 5, so good for that. Good for Kiki
Mhm.
Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at a list of the top grossing movies of 2025 domestically. So number 1 is Captain America. Mufasa, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Moana 2 are still in the top 10, as is A Complete Unknown and Nosferatu. So
Even
a lot
though
of
they
these
didn't come
movies-
out this year?
Yes, it's a list of movies that are making money from the box office in 2025 still.
Interesting. Ooh.
So to be fair, those are movies that had a lot more time to get to these numbers. So if I'm cutting those out, so it's Captain
Well,
America.
let's just do like 2025 releases.
Yeah, so Captain America is number 1, Dogman, Snow White, which is already number 3, so that's something
Slay.
for Snow White. Then it is One of Them Days, which is 4. Like I said,
Okay.
it's doing really well. Then Paddington and Peru. Then Mickey 17.
Okay.
Followed by The Monkey. I'm glad it beat The Monkey.
Yeah, but I feel like that whole list just goes to show what we're at right now.
Yeah, it's been such a
Slow
slow start to 2025. I hate that
Mhm.
Companion is so low. I wish that was up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that makes me sad, but yeah, so Mickey 17 comparatively I think is performing in a place where not everything else is performing super great either.
Yeah. It's just a slow start to the year. We're going to talk about that in our recap and moving forward, and yeah, it is what it is. But I feel like that's all my thoughts. Is that all your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we've yapped this one into the ground, so that I think is everything to talk about for Mickey 17. Ooh, actually, one last question, and I'd be interested, audience, what you think on this. If you were to nominate Mickey 17 for an award category, and you had to choose one, what would you choose?
Would you choose Pattinson for actor, Naomi Ackie for supporting actress, visual, or like cinematography?
Visual, cinematography, directing.
Interesting.
The score I don't remember at all, so I don't think it was all that memorable.
No. Or adapted screenplay.
Yeah.
Since it's, adapted from a book.
I guess that is an
Probably
option they
not, but it
technically
is an
could
option.
choose, but I remember early on when we were talking about
yeah.
how it was a book, and I was like, oh, so it will be nominated for adapted screenplay, and you were like, no.
No, I don't think so. But I don't know, where would you put it?
Where would you put it?
Would you do supporting for Toni Collette or Mark Ruffalo?
I feel like the Academy
hope
would try
not.
and nominate Mark Ruffalo again, and I'd
Yeah.
be like, ugh.
When
I
the
would
clear
probably-
choice is Naomi right there. She's a much better performance.
I would say if I had to choose a supporting actor, it would go Naomi. I don't know
Absolutely.
if
If
I
I had to
would
pick an
nominate her,
acting category, I would pick
Oh,
her.
I would pick Robert Pattinson. I think
Well,
Robert
yeah.
Pattinson is a
But
huge win for this movie.
I think if I had to pick one to nominate it for the whole movie, I would do cinematography. So far.
I would probably go like visual effects on it with all the creepers.
All the
and
creepers, they were pretty
environment.
good. That is true.
I don't think there was any visuals that took me out of the movie, and they're very ambitious with what they try to do. So
Yeah.
I think honestly,
them.
it might still get a visual effects nomination.
Maybe.
I think that's probably its most likely. with Academy.
Yeah.
With Academy
If it's
and
to
awards
get in
voters wanting
anywhere.
to look at
Yeah.
trying to get another Bong Joon-ho in the conversation,
Yes.
I think we can probably anticipate that happening, actually.
I mean, I feel like by the time we actually get to that conversation later this year, I don't think it's going to be in the running anymore. But I don't know.
I
So
don't know.
far,
I wouldn't
certainly
overlook
there.
the fact it was nominated or it was directed by Bong Joon-ho. I think that
Yeah.
gives it a lot of potential.
And the
to stay
critics
in.
liked it.
And in its
So-
visual effects. Better Man
Yeah.
was nominated for visual effects.
This is true. But also, there was only one Marvel movie that came out this year. Now we have 3. And we have Snow White. Do you think
Yeah,
you
I
think they're
don't
going to
know.
get one for the dwarfs?
No, I don't know about that one. But we can talk more about this in our March movie recap
Yes.
and April anticipation. So, thank you guys so much for listening to us yap about Mickey 17. It's probably out of most theaters now, unfortunately. We're a
Yeah.
little late to this one.
But I would say, it's worth a watch.
When it hits digital,
Mm-hmm.
I would say
or
it's
stream
it's
it or
worth
whatever.
a watch if you're looking at movies that come out this year.
Yeah.
Like we said, I actually now I would put a solid $20 on it showing up on a visual effects nomination somewhere in the circuit.
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts and what you agree with, what you disagree with. What do you think it could get nominated for? What do you think the future is for Robert Pattinson and Bong Joon-ho?
And what do you think is Robert Pattinson's best performance to date so
Yes.
far? I would love to know
Yes.
what you guys think. Cedric Diggory's a classic, personally. Traumatized.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Yeah.
And yeah, so
Thanks
thank
for
you guys
watching
for
or
watching.
listening.
I am Luke,
And I'm Alicia.
and thank you for watching Not So Straight Nerds.
Bye.